Couples of Reddit, what's the most unromantic thing that's happened between the two of you that actually is a stronger indication of love than others might think? My husband got diarrhea so bad that it went everywhere in our bathroom and I accidentally sat in it. I cleaned everything off and jumped in the shower to clean his poop off while he was still going. I started puking in the shower from the awful seafood food poisoning smells. He says his time for me is us waiting in a drive-through line and I sneezed a giant snot rocket all over my shirt and freaked out trying to hide it and find a tissue. I fell down some steps and broke both my arms. My husband wiped my butt and helped me shower/wash my hair for weeks. For better or worse, that was definitely filed under worse. When we'd been married about 10 years, 2 little kids, jobs not paying enough to cover daycare and bills, and were having the sort of fight that these stresses can precipitate. It was a nasty one. We were not holding back with unkind things said to each other. And then the phone rang. My dad was in the hospital 1200 miles away. He'd had a stroke. Docs were unsure whether he'd live. The fight stopped and she told me to get in the car and go to the airport. She'd have tickets waiting for me at the counter. She'd call my boss and explain that I was flying across the country. Take how much time I needed. She would take care of the house and the kids and to not worry about anything but taking care of my family. Dad made it a few years after that, but now I know that no matter how hard life gets and however much two volatile big-headed jerks fight and yell, she isn't just on my team, she is my team. We'll be married 30 years this year. Life happens, and sometimes people aren't perfect, but when the world is against me, that little woman will grab my arm, and we'll roar together, and nothing will break us. I grew up with my grandparents. Both my parents had to work various jobs simultaneously, so my grandfather was my world. I took care of him during his last 5 years, when he became bedridden. I tried to visit him as often as I could. He lived with an elderly aunt who fed him, but needed me to bathe him, and, eventually, change his diapers and so on. Early in our relationship, my now wife would come over sometimes. One time I got to his house and found his fridge full and him watching TV, eating a bowl of ice cream. My wife had gone a few hours before me without telling me. 6 months later I proposed. Did you know she was the one before? Or did it hit you in that moment? Your wife sounds like a beautiful human. I kinda felt it, but that moment just sealed the deal for me. My boyfriend made me go to the gynecologist to talk about getting an ablation after watching me struggle from crippling pain and bleeding every month for years. He said not to worry about money or anything else besides solving my problem. Fast forward 2 months and I got a call from my surgeon. Apparently I missed the fact that they did a biopsy when they removed my polyps and found uterine cancer. Had I been stubborn and continued to ignore my miserable periods for years, who knows what could have happened to me. No one expects uterine cancer in someone under 30. He held me while I cried, took me to every appointment, and helped me when I recovered after my hysterectomy. That dude is my rock. The last few years before my other passed away, she had horrible diarrhea and had lost most of her mobility. So it was not uncommon for her to be unable to make it out of the bed, much less to the bathroom. Every time this would happen, my old man would get up, get her to the bathroom and cleaned up, then go back into the bedroom, pull the sheets off their bed, put them in the wash, and finish off with putting fresh clean sheets down. Oh, and he wasn't in much better health himself. But he never complained. My boyfriend texted me one day when he was at the gym that he believed his rectum had prolapsed. No idea how, but I started googling what we needed to do about it. I read that if it wasn't serious, you could just push it back in before going to a doctor instead of heading to the ER. So what do? Put on a pair of gloves, lube my finger up, and kneel in front of him while he's lying on the bed attempting to push part of his rectum back into his anus. Turns out it was just a giant ducking hemorrhoid when he went to the doctors the next day. But I think that was a moment in our relationship where it was established that we both had complete comfort with each other. If your partner can try and shove part of your rectum up into your butt, then nothing is really too disgusting or gross to discuss. Man, all of these are like medical conditions and crazy stuff like that. One time my girlfriend just said she wanted to see me but didn't want to talk to anybody after a rough day at work. So she came to my house and sat in my bed with me while I played video games until we both fell asleep. Didn't say a word other than hey when she got there and alright, bed. Love you. My husband and I often end up showering together, and one night as he was about to get in he said, never mind, I'll clean up and get some food ready for you and let you shave your butthole in peace. That is truly beautiful. Oh yeah, probably the one thing I will never be comfortable doing around anyone else. Maybe partly because I don't feel comfortable doing it. One time my fiance caught me doing it. I nearly cut my butthole because he thought it'd be funny to sneak up on me and say, what are you doing to that butthole? Pretty loudly. It's like pooping. I know that he knows that I do it, but I don't want him seeing it, lol. Relationship goals LMFAO. My wife and I came to understand that we can sleep apart for the sake of comfort and good rest, without it being an expression of emotional distance. Sleeping separately saved my marriage when my insomnia gets bad and my husband's snoring gets really bad. I think it's wonderful to be able to sleep separately most of the time and still feel incredibly close to each other. My husband's family lived across the country and used to send us boxes of their almost new good quality clothes that they no longer wore. The men clothes were great for hubby and sons, but the female clothes were always a bit too small as I had gained a lot of weight since they had seen me last. My husband always felt so bad for me. Then one time, my hubby lifted up a pair of pants out of the box and said happily, these will fit you. They're huge. I still remember the look of horror that butted over his face once he'd realized what he'd said. But I loved the fact that he was happy for me getting a new pair of pants. I'm laughing really hard at this. My so puked in the parking lot on our first date. Before we even got into the restaurant, I thought she was having second thoughts because she just got out of a horrible relationship. Nope, she was on her period and it was bad enough where she would puke. We're married now. If a woman is on a date with you on her period, that's bad enough she will throw up in the parking lot. She really likes you, or she has no food at home. I have a now 12-year-old daughter who is not biologically his, however she calls him dad now, and he always refers to her as his daughter. When she was about 10 he'd been moved in about 6 months, we were settling into things as a family. I was working, and they were home hanging out, and she got her first period. I had briefly had a couple small discussions enough that she knew what was happening, but was pretty unsure what to do. So he handed her some toilet paper, told her the basic girl trick of putting it in her underwear, and took her to the store. He helped her pick out some pads, detoured to the ice cream, chocolate, chips, and bakery section, and picked up Junior Advil just in case. They settled in on the sofa and he explained the basics of how to use it, showed her a quick YouTube video, made up a hot water bottle for her, popped her dirty clothes on to soak, and they snuggled, and she talked about it, and they googled answers if he didn't have them. I came home to them having a nap on the sofa looking like a slumber party exploded, and a happy child. Probably one of the moments I've loved him the most. Jesus Christ, this guy's a keeper. This one for real got me right in the tear ducts. What a champ. We were actually on a romantic getaway weekend in the mountains. I was still breastfeeding at the time. Right as we were getting ready for dinner I had to break it to him that I had a plugged duct and it was threatening to ruin our whole night, if not the whole weekend. I was very uncomfortable and I was worried about getting mastitis. My man went to town on that boob and sucked the plug out. I can't describe how awkward it is to breastfeed your own husband, but he had absolutely no qualms about helping me out. Definitely pranking each other thoroughly. I spent a little more than a year randomly sending him emails from a man named Nalan. He works in customer service, and I made the most ridiculous case for him to solve involving a balloon business. Once in a while, during a slow time at my job, good old Nalan would email him. Last message was about Nalan asking the hubs to join him in a doomsday bunker. I finally decided to tell him the truth on our anniversary, which is on April 1st. He got me back this Christmas. He anonymously sent me a super low rent Chevy Chase coloring book. I greatly dislike Chevy Chase, to put it mildly. He enjoyed me plotting revenge against my friends and even egged me on. He finally admitted the truth on New Year's Eve. I plan to retaliate in the near future. Best $10 I ever spent. My husband acted as the lone pallbearer for our newborn son's funeral. I carried him for nearly his whole life and my husband carried him to his final rest. When she took out a maggot that had burrowed under my skin. She has her insect phobia. Knew she was a keeper. Excuse me, but do I want to know how it got there? Africa walked barefoot from my house to my papaya grove, dumb to say the least. The second night we had overnight relations he sharted at 3 AM while we were fast asleep. Nothing like changing the sheets at 3 AM. We're married now. Crap the bed on the second night over. Husband material. Great comment. Poopy_wizard 132. We both got viscous food poisoning from Chipotle. We both had diarrhea and we were both vomiting for about 10 hours straight. We had one bathroom. It was a darn nightmare. I won't go too much into details because it was ducking gross, but the fact we still wanted to have sex with each other once we recovered was a really good sign. She died 10 years ago. I have not dated since. But while we were married she vomited the whole time. She had serious morning sickness that lasted all day for both pregnancies for 9 months. Then she had cancer and chemo. So more vomiting. She vomited almost every day we were married. But I always held her hair. To all those sharing their stories, thank you. I expected some funny stories, and instead I've read absolutely touching instances of love. So, again, thank you. Thanks for watching.